What is good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host Joshua from Rare's Reviews, and welcome back to the monthly pitch series. This is a series where every month I give you a pitch of what I would do with a certain project, whether that be film or TV. And for this month's pitch, this is a very special one because by the time this video comes out on Wednesday, July 24th, we will be officially 3 days away, or more specifically 2 days away, from the release of Deadpool and Wolverine, which will be the first time there is a rated R MCU project for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but also it will be the first full introduction of the mutants into the MCU, which will eventually lead into the X-Men. If you know about some news that's going on around with the X-Men film for the MCU, they already have their writer picked for that film. I forgot the guy's name, but I know he wrote The Hunger Games, A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. But with that being said, I thought this month would be perfect time for me to give you my pitch for an X-Men, for the X-Men's debut in the MCU. Now, this is going to be, again, as all my other pitches have been, it's not going to be too descriptive on what the film would be about, but I would just be giving you my basic idea of what I would do with the film and how I would take each of these characters and build with their dynamics, because the X-Men are one of, if not the most well-known superhero teams of all time. They were one of Marvel's first families. Well, no, the Marvel's first family was Fantastic Four, but the X-Men is one of the Marvel's biggest teams, one of the biggest superhero teams of all time, and we are finally getting them in the MCU. And it's going to be so exciting when that film releases, whenever it does. But without further ado, let's get into this pitch. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you will not miss another one of my videos or any of my pitches every single month. I do a pitch every single month. I have a whole playlist of other pitches I've done. Make sure you go check those out. And without further ado, let's get into it with the X-Men pitch, starting off with our roster of X-Men characters. Excuse me. So the way I'm going to be doing this is that I'm going to be going through each of the X-Men that will be a part of this film, and I'm going to give you guys a little bit of their origin. I'm not going to go fully in depth with their origin, but we're just going to go into it a little bit. So we have our founding member, our leader of the team, Professor Charles Xavier, aka Professor X. He's the creator of the X-Men and founder of Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. His dream of peaceful coexistence between mutants and humanity has long been the driving force for the X-Men. He is an immensely powerful telepath and scientific genius. Xavier was among the world's greatest masterminds, and he is someone who I really don't have, who I really don't have a casting in mind. I know there are people who wanted Giancarlo Esposito to play him, but he's not going to be playing Professor X. But yeah, so we can't have an X-Men film without Professor X. He's literally the founder of the X-Men, so he's a no-brainer no matter what. The second member of the X-Men will be Scott Summers, aka Cyclops. Now, the first X-Man, Scott Summers possesses the mutant ability to fire powerful concussive blasts through his eyes that act as a portal to another dimension full of the force that makes up his optic blast, aka he has optic blast abilities. Now, for a long time, I was one of these people who thought that Cyclops just had laser vision, but no, that's not the case. It's optic blast. They don't burn people. They simply, they're concussive blast that comes out of his eyes. He is visually distinctive for his ruby quartz visor he wears to control his devastating power. He's a born leader, and Cyclops succeeded his mentor, Professor X, to take command of the X-Men. Basically, he's the field leader, and thanks to X-Men 97, he has now been given his proper love once again, because the past 24 years, the X-Men have been made famous through Wolverine, and now Cyclops will have his time to shine, hopefully once the X-Men return to come into the live action for the MCU. The third member of the X-Men that we will have is Bobby Drake, aka Iceman. The youngest member of the original X-Men, Bobby is an Omega level mutant. Although it took some time for him to realize this, Bobby has the mutant ability of controlling ice. He can create shields, clones, spikes, slides, and also freeze others. Bobby, he will be our youngest member, as I said already. He is one of my favorite X-Men members of all time. If you already don't know where I'm going with this lineup, I think you should already know. So Iceman, he is one of my favorite members. I'm so excited to see if they actually bring him into the MCU. I hope that he gets done justice. 100% tenfold. 100% tenfold. That made zero sense. All right. So the next member we have is Warren Worthington III, aka Angel. Warren received his angelic wings at a young age, along with his unique healing factor in his blood, which is something I didn't even know he had. And he will be our rich kid, rich spoiled brat, who will kind of be brought down to a humbled level by the end of this film, because I think Angel definitely needs some more time in the spotlight, because the way that Fox handled him wasn't necessarily well. He really had no role in X-Men The Last Stand, and X-Men Apocalypse he was made into Archangel, one of Apocalypse's horsemen, but still with that, he really didn't do much. This film, I want him to have a starring role in the film. The next member we have is Beast, or Hank McCoy, aka the Beast. Dr. Hank McCoy is a mutant possessing animal like strength and agility. Despite being covered in blue fur and resembling a ferocious beast, Hank possesses an astounding intellect and superb wit, and he is also one of the nicest mutants you could ever possibly meet. Beast, he's also one of my favorite X-Men. I just love how in different ways I contrast him to Hulk, where it's like both Hank and Bruce are very smart people, but they're different because of their alter egos. Beast being a mutant, he's able to control his monster side of him, his beast side of him, while Hulk, he doesn't. I really hope that at some point in the MCU we get to see Hank and Bruce interact with each other. That'd be something that I'd really, really enjoy. The next member that will be a part of the X-Men is Jean Grey, aka Marvel Girl. She is as always a part of the original 5. She's an Omega level mutant telepath and powerful telekinetic. When we meet her in this film, she will just be recently into discovering her powers, and she'll slowly throughout the film we'll see her grow stronger and stronger, up to the point where at some point she will become one of the strongest mutants of all time, for reasons you obviously know. And this film will also dive into the relationship between Scott and Jean, as this will be the first time that they will meet each other. So I want to build off that relationship from the jump. The next member we have is Aurora Monroe, aka Storm. Now, Storm, she was not a part of the original 5, the OG 5 in the comics, but she was part of the next generation of X-Men. But I decided to add her in here because she is one of the most iconic X-Men of all time. Born to be an American photojournalist and Kenyan princess, Aurora Monroe is one of the most recognizable superheroes in the Marvel Universe. Using her unique ability to see and manipulate natural energy patterns of the universe to summon any type of weather phenomenon she desires in the blink of an eye, she's called Storm. So I really think it would be interesting to see if Storm has a relationship with Kid T'Challa if they do that, but I'll get into an explanation of how the story would go in my opinion. Well, I'll show you guys in a minute. And now we have one final member to join the X-Men, to join our starting roster of X-Men characters for this film. This is a character who pretty much has become a household name, in my opinion, as recently thanks to the Deadpool movies, and I hope he has a relatively big role in Deadpool and Wolverine. We have Pyotr Rasputin, or Peter Rasputin, aka Colossus, who is a Russian mutant who possesses the ability to transform his body into organic steel, giving him immense strength and durability. As I said, Colossus is one of my favorite X-Men. I absolutely love him. I absolutely love his ability to turn his body into metal. I don't know, just something about that seems so cool. And yeah, so there you go. That is my starting roster of X-Men. These are the 8 characters that we're going to be following. And without further ado, let's actually just start getting into the plot of this movie. We could take this film in one of two ways. We could either take this in option A, we give it the Fantastic Four treatment, where this film will take place in another universe, and it comes out before Avengers Secret Wars, and then after Avengers Secret Wars, these characters will exist in the main MCU, or this will take place after the events of Secret Wars, and we just have a fresh new start of X-Men characters with new actors, new everything. The way I'm doing it is I'm taking it in the route of a post Secret Wars universe. So basically, this is going to take place after Secret Wars, because from what Kevin Feige has said, the Mutant Saga is going to be the next saga after the Multiverse Saga, which was kind of expected. So without further ado, let's get into it. This film would be a combination of flashbacks and present-day scenes, as we have flashbacks to see how Charles Xavier found each of the X-Men, along with flashbacks with our villain of this movie, his brother, or his half-brother, Cain Marko, aka the Juggernaut. We would have an opening scene where we see Cain Marko enter the Temple of Sidorak. He discovers a gem, and when he touches it, he sees something red and begins to read it aloud. And that reading is, whosoever touches this gem shall be granted the power of the crimson bands of Sidorak. Henceforth, you who read these names shall become forevermore a human Juggernaut. So Juggernaut is going to be the main villain in this movie. I felt like the X-Men, for the X-Men's first outing, they need to do something relatively grounded, and I feel like Juggernaut is one of the best villains to handle grounded. I don't want to deal with Magneto off the rip, because I feel like we should build up to Magneto and just like focus more on Professor X's past, because that was something that I felt like the X-Men films, for the Fox X-Men films, it never really did too well. Obviously, we had X-Men First Class, which explored the relationship between Charles and Eric when they met, how they became friends, and how they became rivals. But we never really learned more about Charles after that, and I really feel like it would be cool to explore Juggernaut as a villain and how he has so much resentment for Charles. We would then cut to New York 6 months later after that scene, and we explore each of the mutants and how they got their powers, along with Xavier, how Xavier found each of them. So basically, throughout the film, we would have flashbacks for each of the characters and how they got their powers, or at least how they've been doing with their powers, until they meet Charles Xavier, who offers them an option, the opportunity to be a part of the X-Men and fight for mutants and fight for humans alike. We would have a scene where the Friends of Humanity are hunting Colossus and blaming him for a crime that he says he didn't commit. He would then be saved by both Storm and Cyclops. And he would get onto the Blackbird, and they would travel to Xavier's Institute for Gifted Youngsters, a school that is currently being built. So this film would not only establish the X-Men are starting to exist, but it would also establish that the school that they live in, it's not fully there yet. It's slowly being built. The world doesn't really know about the X-Men. They just know that mutants are on the rise. There's slowly more and more in them arriving, and I think it's cool to see the rise of the mutants in this movie end with the proper built building of Xavier's school. We would see the X-Men training in the Danger Room, with Cyclops struggling to lead the team. We would also get a flashback about Scott's past and how he lost his family. There would be a little bit of a tease to the Shi'ar. I don't know if Marvel has any intent of doing the Shi'ar storyline or anything Dark Phoenix related, or hell, even Starjammers, but I think that would be a little tease to also tease like Havoc, who's also another one of my favorite X-Men. So I feel like that would definitely be like a little tease for something. The team would then get alerted, and all of them suit up to face Juggernaut for the first time. He absolutely kicks their asses, as they don't necessarily know how to work fully together as a team, and also because Cyclops just doesn't know what the threat is, like who Juggernaut is and how they could stop him, because, as I said, he completely whoops their asses. And he would kick their butts, and then he would say that he is hell-bent on destroying Xavier. We would then have a scene where there's a flashback following Xavier and how he grew up with his half-brother Cain, who bullied him for being the favorite child. And this was also when Charles was growing his abilities, when his powers were slowly growing. And I think just seeing the dynamic between Cain and Xavier would be really interesting. We would also begin to see the beginning of the relationship between Jean and Scott. And now this is the part where I'm going to start diving into the dynamics between the characters. We're going to have a lot of dynamics between each of the characters, being the first one being the relationship between Jean and Scott. When the film starts and we see Scott and Jean for the first time, they are on a friend basis. They're friends, but it's very obvious that Scott has feelings for Jean. Jean, she knows Scott has feelings for her, but she doesn't address it because she just wants to focus on herself and focus on her abilities. But by the end of the film, Scott and Jean will get together and they'll officially become boyfriend and girlfriend. The second dynamic that we would be focusing on is the opposing sides of Angel and Iceman, as Angel is a wealthy man while Bobby isn't. I think it would be such an interesting dynamic to see how Bobby is someone who really enjoys his powers, who loves being a mutant and enjoys learning his abilities, while Warren, he is someone who grew into wealth. He was born into wealth, as his family is very rich, and how he had to keep his powers a secret for such a long time because of his wealth, because his father would worry that if the world found out that his son was a mutant, then there would be a ton of backlash on their family. So he literally would have Warren be quiet about his abilities, and that's definitely something that I feel like should be explored between Bobby and Angel, because I feel like they would be the youngest members of the group. So I definitely think that would be really interesting. The next connection we would explore is the sisterhood of Jean and Storm, and just seeing how that can be established. Something there was one scene that I really loved about in X-Men 97, where Jean / Madeline Pryor and Storm were talking about how the X-Men are a found family, and how they found sisters, like they're sisters now, and we would definitely see how their connection as sisters will grow in the film, and with them really just being sisters, like being their newfound sisterhood. And then the final connections we would be focusing on is the feeling of being an outcast with both Beast and Colossus, as they were used to be able, as at some point in their lives they were both able to be used to hide their mutations. With Beast, he would at some point in his life, he did look human. It was only his giant feet. But then after he tried to hide his mutant abilities with the serum, and eventually turned him into the Blue Beast, that's when it was really hard for him to hide his abilities. But we see how he really just has accepted it for himself. And Colossus, for him, it was really easy for him to hide his mutation, but until he used his abilities to save a life, that's when he was outed. He outed himself as a mutant, and he just feels so much like an outcast to his family, who he has not seen his little sister, Ileana, who would be mentioned. If you don't know, Colossus' sister is Magic, a member of the New Mutants, so I feel like that would definitely be a little reference that we can make for this film. So then there would be a message. There would really be a message through that connection between Colossus and Beast, being that to not judge everyone as to be something to be hated and afraid of, as this would not only show through the mutants, but something. Wait, what? There would be a message there to not judge everyone as something to be hated and afraid of, as this would not only be shown through the mutants, but also through the relationship of Xavier and Kane, along with Bobby coming out as gay. I feel like that's also something that was established early on. As of recently, like it was confirmed that Bobby was like gay or something. So I feel like it would. I feel like, all right, yeah, we should just let that be. And the whole message of this movie is just to not be afraid of who you are, because we see how throughout this movie, we see how a lot of the X-Men have their own fears of their abilities and how society won't accept them. And it's through Xavier that shows them that they don't need to be afraid of who they are. They just need to be proud of who they are. And that really shows through Scott, through Jean, through Storm, through Bobby in the sense of him being gay, through Warren especially, through Beast, through Colossus, and how all of them just really end up accepting who they really are, and that they are mutants. There's nothing you can do to hide that dynamic. And anyway, the ending of the film would have the X-Men stop Juggernaut from killing Xavier after he steals him, after he captures him. The X-Men come together, they work together to defeat Juggernaut. They separate him, from they're able to stop him. They could either separate him from the gem of Cyttorak, or they could literally just knock him out and inevitably stop him. And they save Xavier, and they finally out themselves to the world, saying the X-Men are real. We are real. We want to establish a peace between humans and mutants. Something that would not really be thought out well by both sides. There would be one post-credit scene in this movie where it would basically have Juggernaut meeting someone who has ties to Magneto. He could either eat Magneto himself, or he can meet someone like Mystique, who will tease Magneto in the end. There you go. And there you go. That is my pitch for my X-Men film. I'm very sorry that this was very all over the place. I have not done these in a while, and I kind of forgot how much of this I wrote, and I've just been jumping from point to point. I didn't really necessarily read my thing properly, but that is my all over the place pitch for my X-Men film that I would do if I had the power to make an X-Men film in the MCU. I really hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know down in the comments what would be your ideal lineup for the X-Men to join in the MCU. I definitely want to hear your opinions on it. And also, what would you honestly do with the X-Men film? If you want to go see a video of someone doing an X-Men film perfectly justice, go watch JT videos. I am doing a collab with him where I am being a part of, I have my own Reptile show, being a part of the RMCU side projects. First episode is coming out July 31st. So I hope you guys, so make sure you guys have your notifications set on for JT videos. Just had to shout them out there. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video of the pitch. If you guys have any other pitches that you would like me to do, make sure you drop them in the comment section. I'll definitely read them. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Joshua from Rage Reviews, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.